What's up everybody and welcome to Preview Picks. This is where we go through the new upcoming comic books for the week and figure out what's going to be the best option for you as well as what's going to be the best option for me. Starting off with Image Comics, one of my biggest recommendations is Renato Jones #1. The original issue was actually produced a few weeks ago, but so this is the second printing that's coming out, and overall it's a really crazy story. So I mean, if you're talking about a gonzo action commentary on wealth and status and equality in the United States and in the world in general, so Carr Andrews, who's really at the heart of this book, takes ownership over everything. He writes it, he draws it, he colors it, he really kind of guides this story along the way. And it's really shown by how absolutely insane it is. If you want to be taken on a ride and you're not necessarily sure if you want to be comfortable the entire way, then I highly suggest picking this up. It was a lot of fun when I read the first issue, and you know, the second printing is probably going to be just as great for somebody else. Then we go over to Marvel. Marvel's kicking off their Civil War II event with Civil War #1. And what this story is it's going to be basically the main tie-in book, the main set piece for this summer event that they're really putting out there that's tying into a bunch of different elements of the Marvel Universe. And what you're going to see is a real, it's not going to be like Civil War originally, and I feel like it's not going to provide quite as compelling a story arc, but ultimately, if you've been reading the Ultimates and Captain Marvel, you've got a really good idea of where this is going to be going. You don't necessarily need to be reading those titles, but I did go back and pick up the Ultimates copies 1 through 7, just to make sure that I was kind of on the same page. And ultimately, I'd say that it's going to be good. I can't wait to see where it's going from there. I did pick up the free Comic Book Day issue as well as Civil War 0, and I kind of like the way that the story's going. I'm interested to see how it kind of ties in. I'm not going to be picking up all the tie-ins, but the main book, I'm gonna keep pace with that and see how that goes. One of the other events that's really kind of wrapping up now at this point in time is Spider-Woman Omega. So I've got the other issues just to kind of tie into the whole Spider-Man, Spider-Woman kind of universe, and it's really just about the conclusion. It's a story that I'm more than happy to talk about a little bit more length, but ultimately right now it's just me completing the grouping of those so that way I can have all the issues in place in one at once. So then we get into something completely different from Marvel, and that's a relaunch of Timely Comics. So Timely Comics was the original name for Marvel Comics before they transitioned over into more superhero kind of basis. And what they're doing with the Timely Comics brand is really interesting. So they're taking titles and they're making the first 3 issues available in a $3 issue and producing it so that way it's very easy for you to get caught up or at least get interested in the story before going out to pick up the back issues. So there's a variety of different titles that are available. It looks like the Avengers, the Inhumans, Carnage. Those are all going to be present this week as a Timely Comics #1, which is going to be a big volume that's going to take the first 3 issues into one. So I recommend that if you have any kind of interest in those particular, stories, go grab those to get a great start. And last but not least, this week kind of gets dominated by DC. And what DC's doing is they're really launching the premier flagship titles for their Rebirth universe this first week of June. You've got Batman Rebirth #1, Superman Rebirth #1, Green Arrow Rebirth #1, and Green Lanterns #1. So you've got new creative teams that are kind of coming along with this. So you've got Tom King, who's going to be writing Batman Rebirth. You've got Peter J. Tomasi, who's going to be writing the primary Superman book. You've got Sam Humphries and Jeff Johns, who are taking over the Green Lanterns title. But I feel like Sam Humphries is just going to be, Jeff Johns is only going to be around for the first Rebirth issue, just to kind of guide that way along. And then Sam Humphries is going to take over for the main story. I'm not really super familiar with the Green Arrow team, but ultimately I'm looking forward to picking it up so that way I can figure out what books out of this Rebirth universe I kind of want to keep and what books that I'm going to kind of pass on. That's something I'm going to be going over in more detail in Rebirth Rundown. Rebirth Rundown is going to be a show where I go over all the new titles that are coming out of the DC Rebirth universe launch, as well as some of the new #1s that aren't necessarily a Rebirth title, but ultimately they're a brand new take on the story that's going to be moving forward. So that's it for this week's episode of Preview Picks. If you like what you see here, hit the like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to get more detailed comics content regarding anything and everything inside the comics universe.